Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzie Jane, and this week I have Ghost in Real Life joining me on the podcast. Maggie and I had just met in New York when she was playing with Chase and Status, and then the next day going coast to coast and hitting the Hollywood Palladium with the worship artists. She has been absolutely killing it. It was so lovely to have a super transparent conversation about her sonic journey, her past coming up, working in studios, going to Berklee College of Music, and originally coming from New Jersey, now to living in LA and finding her home on the West Coast. We talk about labels, independently growing as a musician, building a community and a fan base, and so much more. Remember, if you love what we're doing here, if you love these conversations, if you laugh, learn from them, share them with your friends, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Let's just hop into it. This is Lizzie Jane, and you are tuning into my podcast with Ghost in Real Life. Maggie, Ghost in Real Life, thank you for joining me so much on the Lizzie Jane podcast today. I'm really glad that we're finally getting to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been really wanting to do this for many years.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy because the first time that I saw your name was on the Girl Gang compilation, I think in 2019. And it was like, I remember seeing your name, like Layla, Lay's, like when she first started. And then there was like Sippy. I think Jessica did something. And it was the first time that I took a step back and I just went, wow, okay, girls are coming. And it's crazy to see what has happened, throw a good old pandemic in there. But what has happened from then to now, and we finally like met in real life in New York 2 weeks ago. You were playing with Chase and Status on Friday night on the East Coast, and then heading straight to the airport and going to play with the Worship guys, Dimension, Subfocus, 1991, and playing the Hollywood Palladium there. I mean, it has to be pretty surreal to you to see certain things come to fruition. And, is this what you kind of always imagined the project and the art itself to be, or have you kind of gone with like the ebbs and flows? Like, I just want to know about Maggie. Like, tell us like your story as to kind of like how you came to be really one of the only, like one of many, but one of a handful of stateside artists really pushing drum and bass forward, period, when you also had like your foot in a lot of other genres prior.
Well, if you would have asked me, if I would have had my way, from like my 8-year-old self, I'd be a pop star by now.
Love it.
You but I think that throughout my many years of making music since I've been 12 years old, and going through all sorts of parts of the industry, I'm just honestly happy to just be making music, and finding something that, involves all of my interests. Like once I figured out with drum and bass that I can include my love for punk and pop punk, I just took off with it. I just claimed it. I said, this is mine. And I just, put all my personality in it. And I just love it. Like I'm just having so much fun.
That's amazing. And I mean, I think the biggest thing too is if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's really, really hard in this industry. And I think with electronic music in general, until I feel like maybe the last year to 3 years, you really would come up and establish your project or establish your brand or establish your sound. And you really had to fit in this like one pocket. You were expected to make the same music over and over again, not really take from these like hybrid influences. And if you didn't do that, then it was really hard to represent you or sell you or put you on a label and have those people like fall in love with you or like look into your project and really become members of the community. And now I feel like there's so many artists and musicians that are doing so many different things. And not only is it like feeling fulfilled as an artist, but I can't think of anything worse than putting in the time and the hours and sacrifice and the da 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 alongside with us being as privileged as we are to do this as a living of making something that you hate because you feel like you have to make it. And when you find that like one thing, or when you say, you know what, I don't care, this is going to be the hard road, like Nitty Gritty said to me 5 years ago, but I'm going to make every genre of music that I love. And some's going to be for the algorithm and the label and the sound, and some's going to be just for me, and finding that balance, like the light bulb goes off and then you're in love with making music all again. And I feel like that's what I've seen as an outsider for your project, when you finally found like, hey, I'm going to take my background and like my love for pop punk and punk music and combined it with drum and bass. Like, everyone has said this forever, that this is finally drum and bass's year, but like it really is. Like, we really see it here and now. And people coming from overseas and like people in the States, like Reaper and Camarion and Rebel Scum and all of those guys just like pushing forward all of these different subgenres in like the drum and bass sound. I haven't seen someone do what you've done. And it's, I feel like, have you ever been, I guess, nervous when you chose to like mesh these two like hybrid punk genres with drum and bass? Because it's something that I don't typically see. And I know you started with it like on the Hyper Die tour with Riot 10, which really, as we discussed before, was a lot of those kids' first drum and bass sets ever.
Yeah. Um, I was definitely nervous, first when Youth came out, because that was, like, my first take on, "Okay, this is gonna be my sound." Like, I'm going to continue because I know this song is gonna do well. Like, I remember when Slippy and I were pitching that song out to labels, um, it was asked there were people just begging for it. Like, I was just like, "This is gonna be my sound. This is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna continue with." I think a part of me kind of enjoys like figuring out what everyone likes and being able to please a crowd. There's like a weird part of me that like really enjoys that. And I don't know why. Um, it's really weirdly fulfilling. And it's like my dad said to me a while, like when I first started going out to college, he was just like, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I never wanted music to feel like work, you
Mhm.
know? And I think that, and something I notice with a lot of people who succeed in music is they take a lot of influence from their culture or from their like family's history or just like how they grew up, you know? And I always just, I felt so uncultured being a white girl. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pull something like that off, but I'm just a punk. Like for Christmas, family with my Christmas was going to see the Bouncing Souls in New Jersey. Like, you know?
And New Jersey and New York is like home of like the true punk scene. Not like post-hardcore, not metal, not every time I die, or like, Acacia Strain, or like some of those guys that have like, or like Turnover, like that have like those like hybrid kind of meshes of sitting in those genres, or you go to like pop punk, like Neck Deep, those guys, but like real true like punk, like venues that are the size of this room, where people are like standing on benches and like throwing things, and the band is like in the middle of the room. I grew up in Tampa, and there was a place called Transition Skate Park, and it was literally like the craziest, like, when they did skate park competitions, like, Lil Wayne would come and, like, they would have these, like, annual skate competitions that were wild, but then in the back, Transitions was, like, this small 20 by 20, 2 attics on top on either side of, like, the stage, and there was never anywhere like, to stand, but my mom would drop me off there after high school, and you would just watch shows, and, like, the culture of that, and like how bands would behave, and how like the fans were like so connected in the community. I'll never forget that, because I remember looking at like a club or a rave for the first time, and I was like, hell no, this is not me. Like, this is not my scene. Like, I don't even know if this is like real music. I just want to like feel that environment. And when I finally found an electronic music, I'd fallen in love. But there's nothing like those little niches of like rock, metal, punk, especially in, New York City, New Jersey. And you're originally from New Jersey. So you were up there like your whole life, right?
Yeah, there was one venue I was never allowed to go to because I was never old enough until they closed. It was like in the middle of woods in New Jersey, and for one show, they built the stage like outside the venue like an hour before the show, like with some wood they found, and they were just like the wood was like bending, like my brother was telling me it was like bouncing while they were all jumping on it, and then it was like sometimes a ska band, so you'd have, like, 3 horn players, 2 guitarists, a
Oh my
bassist, a
God.
drummer, and a singer, like, all on this teeny tiny and I'm just kinda like, "Man." Like, I remember my dad, took us to see No Effects in New York City, and I remember, like, being, like, 16 years old, teeny tiny, just running through the pit with these 40-year-old men who were, like, 3 times my size and just having the best time. 'Cause I would just fly and bounce around because I was so light.
I remember
But
passing out, like, in my first mosh pit. It was a day to remember in at Janice Live in St. Pete, and I was like, "Never again," but that was, like, the coolest shit ever. The first time you crowd surf, the first time, like, you see this, and I feel like when we're around the same age, I think, and, like, when I started going to raves, I feel like dubstep wasn't as big. It was big, but it wasn't as big as it is now, and, like, now you see that, like, metalhead culture and punk culture with dubstep where you see the crowd surfing and you see the mosh pits, and I never saw that when I first got into electronic dance music, so it's so crazy to see, like, again, these cultures really intertwine, and I feel like that's why I was pulled to bass music to begin with was because it really represented what I listened to mostly most of my life, and, like, the way that you look at a punk song or you look at, like, a metal song structure is, like, the breakdown, the build, the drop is like, the equivalent to like where their like chorus and hook is, but it's still like this like heavy ass thing that they build up to. And it's wild, but it's so cool to see artists like yourself now like taking those influences and then, culture from like your own life and experience from your own life and like pushing that forward. And then also like opening for people like Jason Status and like the whole crowd is like singing back to you.
oh, man, that was crazy because I did not expect it. I was just like, "Man, I hope I play this and they sing along." And they were just on cue, like, with, the Panic at the Disco remix, like, I remember, like, transitioning, like, the string part, into the outro of the song previous, and I faded out the previous song just as the words began, and this, like, large singing just came at me, and I look back at my family behind me, and their faces are just like
You're like, "Yes, this
like,
is it."
they didn't even know how to comprehend because I don't think they've ever seen me play such a large crowd either. I don't think they expected that at all.
The show was massive. I mean, when I
It
saw the
was
videos
so
after,
massive.
like, so massive, and then you did another massive show the next day. You were like, "I'm not going to write or I'm not going to play Badadon," and then you flipped it and you're like, "I'm gonna play it," and then you just went and you played the remix, and I love that, and I feel like, I would love to know about, like, your journey in the DAW, like, in Ableton. I know you've worked in studios as an audio engineer, as kind of like a person who wears all the hats, which I think a lot of people have to do not only in their only like their own career if they have a project, but a lot of us do come from that audio background. Like where was Maggie before this project was birthed and you knew this is like the craft you wanted to hone and what you really wanted to do and keep on working on?
Yeah, so Imma be real, when I was in high school, I hated computers. I never thought I was gonna use a computer.
Oh
I
my
was so
god.
dead set against it. I was just like, "I don't know how to use those things. I don't wanna know. It sounds really complex." And I was so stubborn about it, and I wanted to write music so bad, I hand wrote a 16-page 4-part choir piece. It took
Love
me a
it.
few months, but I did it.
Oh my god. You're like, "I'm
It's
gonna
like
stick it to the man."
Well, the guys at Guitar Center just, like they're like we, like, asked them, we went there and we're like, "Is there, like, notation software that she could maybe use or whatever?" And they're just like, "Yeah, there's, like, Sibelius, but, like, she probably wouldn't understand that." And I was like, "Screw you guys, I'm just gonna do it by hand."
Like, just give me some paper, give me some scoring paper, that's all I need. And I
Right.
remember getting, like, the early days, I forget what the hell it's called, but I got, like, the handbook, or the mixing engineer's handbook. I literally have it sitting right there, and then I got, like, the not the beginner, but it's, like, all of the OG traditional, this is how you play piano, and this is how you do the scales, and this is how you understand dissonance and harmonics, and the the 3rd, 5th, and the 7th, and the ninth, and this is what you're gonna do, and then I was like, "Okay, this is a lot," and I just went to a computer. And I was like, "No." So after that, I mean, how do you go from, "Yeah, I'm not touching computer, I'm not using syllabus, I'm not doing anything digital," to, "I'm producing in Ableton."
Well, I think that once I went to college, so I attended Berklee College of Music, which was
Okay.
okay. It was an okay experience. I'm not really going to brag on their reputation. It was okay. Um, and I just had this whole, like, newfound freedom of being away from home, which I'm sure everybody in college experiences for their freshman year. I was crazy my freshman year. I threw the best parties at my college in my 2.5 bath, apartment in Boston.
Love it.
I had a toga party. I had, like I would send out, like, a face invite to all these people, and they would just show up. Like, they're just like, "Maggie's having a party, we gotta go."
Oh my god.
And I even shaved my hair and I gave myself a mohawk.
No way.
So and, Berkeley, so when you, like, get into the school, they give you a Mac, and I had no idea how to use it. The as far as I knew how to use it was, like, what I needed to do for school, and,
Mhm.
like, you start out with, like, the basic classes, um, at Berkeley, and I really wanted to do composition and production because I wanted to write music and kind of know computers enough. So it's like I was kinda dipping my toe in, but I was like, "This is unfamiliar territory." But then after, like, 1 semester, I was like, "This is too easy." I figured it out, like, so quickly. I was like, "Alright, I'm just gonna apply for the engineering major." I didn't get in my 1st semester. They actually denied me into the engineering major, but my interview was such BS. I was like, "I'm applying again." That was BS. Like,
Why was it
after hearing
BS? Did they just ask, like, super generic questions and, like, not stuff that would actually, like, test your skill or, like, your own aspirations?
you ever just, like, walk in a room and people are already assuming that you're stupid and you don't know anything without even, like, just judging you based off of how you look? That's exactly what it was,
Welcome
and
to
I
the
was
music
pissed.
industry. Like,
I was just like, "Absolutely not." My
oh,
New Jersey woman just, like was just like, "Nah, brother."
oh. Okay,
So,
so you reapplied.
I reapplied and I was interviewed by this guy. I'll remember him till the day I die. His name was John Wynot, literally spelled Whynot. And that was the easiest interview that I've ever had. Like, his personality is just based off of his name. Like, there's no way around it. It was so awesome. He was just like, "I like you." He's like, "I'll get you in." I was like, "Alright, sick."
Oh my god. I feel like you get, because I went to a traditional university, and then I transferred to Full Sail, and obviously Berkeley was an option for me. I couldn't I had heard just, like, a mixed bag of things, but I also was going for jazz, not anything audio related. It was more performance based, and I'm like, "Do you actually see yourself leaving this place, making enough money to pay back the loans based on a jazz performance degree, certificate, whatever?" And I was like, "Hell no." But I ended up at Full Sail anyways. So, yeah, so I still did the same shit, but I went for audio engineering, and some of the teachers and professors that you meet in an artsy school, is they're out there and they're amazing, but half the time you're just like, wow, like I just want to hear your life story because you seem like you've like been through it.
You're right. Yeah,
Oh,
I was like it was really easy to pick out those there was only a handful of professors, it was a very small major. They only selected, like, 50 kids this semester.
oh wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the fact that I got in was pretty awesome, but I think it's because they had a lack of women in the major.
Sounds about right. Hopefully
Yeah, I
now it's a little bit more even, but like Berkeley's such a large school, 50 students is very small.
think it was, like, 50 to 100. They might have been expanding because I know they were, like, trying to expand when I was there. Um But, I with me getting in so late, I would spend every single summer there at Berkeley, which was really good for me because I got a lot of studio time,
Mm,
and I worked with all of the consoles, I really like a lot of the stuff that I learned at Berkeley, I'm going to admit, was very self-taught. The teachers will just kinda give you their opinion and give you the tools you'll need. They'll show you how to do the things, but it's very much on you to go and figure it out.
yeah.
Which I think was really, really good for me to kind of find that ability of like, hey, I can go do this and figure it out and Google it and YouTube it and, kind of gave me that power, and I did take a school job where I had to help other teachers with their computers. So that even helped me further of mastering a computer. And by the time I was graduating, it's like, I knew how to use Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, Reason. Um, I was able to figure out any software. I was using Melodyne, Autotune, anything. But it was like I really just like I'm not even gonna give Berkeley credit for that. Like
No,
I
I
paid,
I agree with
yeah.
you. Yeah.
I paid my tuition. I went to those classes. I did the work. That was me. And I think that's like something I feel like a lot of people really need to start recognizing in themselves, you know.
Like in ways of like showing up and like putting your best foot forward and like doing the work and understanding. I mean, in this industry, I mean, really in any industry, it doesn't matter if you're like a banker, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever. Like no one owes you anything. Like a lot of it, I think a lot of people come into this industry with like a preconceived notion of like if my number and my data is there or if like my relationships with this person is here or da 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 da, then it's going to make my career or take me to the next level. And while all of those things can definitely aid and help, at the end of the day, it definitely comes down to you. And it's like you showing up every single day. And eventually, opportunities will come. Eventually, things will happen. Eventually, people want to hop aboard the train, but it's hard. Like, there's a lot of instances that I've seen people kind of get like ahead of themselves. It's like a long game. And it's like even looking at your journey, like you started at Berkeley, like you learn, you got all the certifications, you dabbled in all of the VSTs and the DAWs and had all of this knowledge, but then it's like, well, then what do you do with it? Like, what are you going to choose to do? And when you left college, did you just start like working in studios or did you take like time to say, okay, what the hell am I going to do with this? Or did you just start making music? Because engineering is very different than, like, obviously, as you know, like the world of production and like the world of actually understanding music theory and like musical knowledge to build songs.
Well, so my last year of college, there was excuse me. Um, there was a lot of pressure to succeed in
Mhm.
music. There's like this weird thing about Berkeley, which I hate, that people will say to you, be like, if you graduate Berkeley, you're never going to succeed in the music industry. I'm like, that's really weird. Why would you say that to people? Like,
I hate that.
so right, and the thing is, it's like after what I had experienced at Berkeley and the things that I had access to, I'm just like, I need to find a way to get access to those things again. So originally I was going to go down to Atlanta. It just there were some opportunities that just were not the right fit. Um, and just not it didn't feel right So I ended up getting an internship, assistantship, I guess, for the film score John Powell. When I had applied for the job, it just had like a random studio name. So I was just applying to whatever studios. And they called me and they're like, "Do you know who John Powell is?" And I was like, "No." Because
No.
I'm not in film
Yeah.
scoring. And they just kinda laughed and they're like, "Do you know, the movie How to Train Your Dragon?" I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I scored that." And I was like, "Oh."
Like, "Oh,
They're like
okay."
they were looking for someone to come help them while their mix engineer was on vacation, so I was only supposed to be in LA for 2 months. Um, so as soon as I got here, I was, you know, I was staying in my friend's daughter's bedroom. It was really awkward, and
Love that.
I was, like, trying to do this job and trying to find somewhere to live, but then the job ended, and I was just like, "I have to stay in LA because there's more things I wanna do here." And I ended up getting an internship at Nightbird Studios, which was mostly hip hop, and I was just like I actually had an opportunity to go work at a sound design studio
That's
for,
cool. Like Foley.
um Foley, doing stuff for trailers, um, but I didn't study sound design at Berkeley, so I just didn't feel like I had the skills for it and I wasn't sure if that was a path I wanted to take. Um, so there's, like, still a part of me that I wish I took it because there's probably, like, a lot of money in it, but I
Sound
just
design's cool. That whole alleyway of things are very cool, but I also get that. And this is like pre I'm making music and in sound design.
Yeah, like, this was, like, when I was teaching myself how to make electronic music because I was like, "I need to know how to do this." Because originally I was recording live instruments and, like, maybe recording a synthesizer, maybe MIDIing like, I really didn't know much about EDM. The most that I knew about EDM back then was, like, Jack U and Skrillex and, like, I didn't even know who Excision was, you know? Yeah, that's I was so
Wild.
far, like, removed from that whole world, because I was so dead set on being somebody's producer or their main go-to engineer, which I was really trying to do at Nightbird, but I very much learned very quickly that they did not take me seriously and really just had me around for my organization skills.
I want to say very quickly, this is like a very similar story to I don't know if you know her. She lives out there, Tori Lutzler. She goes by like Tiny Cat, but I had
Yeah, I know.
her on the podcast quite a bit ago and she was talking about the first time that she got an internship and she actually got it at like remote control, but she was there to score, but they just wanted her for like her organization and like her voice, but not to actually like score and like make music. And like I just see these like similarities when like young individuals and like aspiring career professionals get in the studio and they're like, ha ha, ha, gotcha, roll those cables, get over here. Like roll the XLRs, do the emails, do the scheduling. You're actually not doing what you want to do ever.
Right. Um And, like, so what would happen is since I was so charismatic too, I would actually get clients from that studio. I actually had a few sessions in there, and they hated that. They're like, "How is she doing this?" Like, people love to underestimate me. I don't know what it is. Um Eventually, I left that studio to go work at this other studio called Glenwood Place, and they were owned by Atlantic Records. I worked with some of the top A-list pop people, like, name someone, I probably worked with them in that
Dope.
studio. It
What would your
was
like day to day look like? Like, what does a day to day look like in studios in the position that you were in at the time?
I would work at my day job from 10 AM to 4 PM, go home, take a 2-hour nap, wake up, shower, go to the studio around 8 PM, or 9 PM, whenever I was, like, called to go in, stay there all night, figure out a way between me and the other interns who's gonna sleep and where and how we're gonna avoid the camera so we can get a nap in, go get the artists their 1 a.m. meal. Um, around 4, if they're still in the studio around 4 a.m., we're in our hiding spot where the cameras can't see us, probably smoking a joint. Um, and then, they finally leave 6, 7 a.m. We clean up the studio. I leave, go home. Sometimes I would go take my car, park in the parking garage of my day job, take a nap, and then go to work.
Oh, that's that's the dream.
I did that for 2 years.
That's not sustainable. I know the hustle and I appreciate the hustle. It ain't sustainable. It's like that you get to a level when you do stuff like that, like crash and burn. Like yeah. But you have like such a cool thing to like put on your resume and like you've been able to be around these people and that like the reality is that's unfortunately like the only way that you can get your foot in the door sometimes and then grow from there.
Right. I was actually really terrified when I got fired from that job. It ended very badly, unfortunately.
Oh no.
I had a group of guys, gang up against me because I was up next to be moved up to assistant engineer, and they did not like that. They wanted their buddy to be working with them, not me.
Crap.
So they tricked me into, um writing my name down on the sheet because they forgot to when they went to the storage. They left the storage unlocked and blamed it on me, and I got fired. And
Yeah.
then, to make it even better, the studio manager told other studios not to hire me.
Bro, I'm so glad we're having this podcast right now. I literally fucking hate people sometimes. Like, I can't and stuff like that, like, happens all the time. Stuff like that happens in our industry. Like, I think that I've gone through some shit sometimes, and then I hear these stories, and I'm just like, "Bro, like, absolutely not. I would lose my shit. Like, I would absolutely lose it if I was put in the same situation as you here." And, like, where you're just kind of like sabotage. But I also feel like sometimes things happen for a reason. And when you get out, you're like, hey, this was dope and this was awesome to get experience under my belt and do X, Y, and Z. But it's like not the right place for me to be here now.
Right, exactly. And what's so satisfying is that since I know I'm a good person and I really stay true to myself, I did what I had to do to survive. I got myself an office job, you know, and like I I was just like, you know what, enough of trying to go in these roundabout ways to do what I want to do. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's when I started Ghost in real life. And, I just wanted to have something where I could just be myself, make what I wanna make. Nobody trying to do anything weird. There's no front, there's no, like, personality. It's just me. Like, I think that's why it took me so long to to really build my brand until, like, in the past year, I was just like, "You know what? I should get a little more organized about this." But, yeah, no, it's just like now all those guys are reaching out to me trying to make music with me, and I'm like, "Absolutely not.
Because
Nope."
their long-term goal was to be doing what you're doing right now. They're just doing these little like and don't get me wrong, like I feel like engineers are like we are engineers, but we're also producers. Like we wear a lot of hats. Like I think there's reasons why some of the best mixing engineers don't make music. Like I think everybody has like this thing in their craft that makes them really, really good, especially when you get to the Columbia, the Atlantic, Sony, Warner, all of that stuff where like they have their dedicated roles. But at the end of the day, I feel like so many people just want to have their own like lane to create and do what they really want to do. And a lot of people just can't make it happen. Like they're either stuck in this job where they're working 120 hours a week and they're doing what they love and they're in the entertainment industry, but like again, like are you creatively fulfilled? Like do you feel like what you're doing is actually like making you happy? And unfortunately, most of like the engineers that I speak with that have done that for decade, 2 decades and they've done it their whole life, they either have risen and they have their own studio and they have their own crew underneath them, or they're still doing it and they're like fucking miserable. And I remember when I came to Denver, I was like, okay, you can't just like coast off of what you're making from music. Like, you have a house, like, you need to get a job, like, you need to do what you need to do. And with like my degree and like with stuff in the past with like Foley sound and sound design, I was like, okay, you could go work for this post production house, you could go work for this film house, but do you know how much they're going to ask out of you? They're going to ask out of you a full time job, a salary paid position, which means you're basically their bitch forever. And then is Lizzie Jane, and what you really are only getting a job to like do like partial income until you get to a point where you don't have to do that anymore, is that going to fall to like the wayside, opposed to just getting a job that like maybe doesn't have to do anything with music, that's going to take 20 to 30 hours a week, still going to make you a good amount of money that can like, suppress that income that you're losing, and then you're still got your focus on like the eye on the prize. And like, I feel like a lot of people have to make those decisions because it just takes so much time to do what we're doing. And I think in any creative lane, it takes so much time because at the end of the day, it's like, really, I don't feel like you're in entertainment or you're in a creative lane unless you really are passionate about it and like love it. Like, I don't see anybody like saying I want to be like a fucking oil painter to make millions. Like, no, you go be a lawyer, you go be a doctor, you go be an investor, like you go to make money. Like, I don't feel like we do our jobs for like the monetary income on the other side of it.
I guess so. I mean, like, I would be lying if I didn't say, like, I don't wanna do like, I love doing this even if I don't make money, I would be completely lying. Like,
It's difficult. It's
you know?
difficult. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if I was to do what I love and it didn't make me any money, I would be still in my hometown doing the Monday open mic nights and the drum circle with the people that I hung out with in high school, and I would be so happy. But unfortunately, that is not reality.
That's very
Like
true, but you made it happen, and I think that's where it's like at where it's like
yeah.
where I looked at it was, if you can put on a bunch of different hats and do a bunch of different creative things and make enough to get by until you get to that next level and you're making income
Yeah.
solely based on your art, then like you're winning. Because I know, like, you know how hard it is, I know how hard it is to actually get to a place that still, for me, oftentimes it shows it doesn't happen, where you're just like making a few $100s after expenses, breaking even after expenses. Like, it's
Yeah.
difficult when you're an up and coming act with travel, hotels, flights, Ubers. Like, pre-pandemic, a lot of hospitality teams would take care of, in my opinion, a lot more than they take care of now. And I understand that everybody went through a difficult time, but like, I remember getting my first few national show offers, and it was like, you have a car picking you up. You're going to have like stuff at the hotel, every offer, hotel, ground, and rider. Now, you hardly ever get that. It's an offer that's all in. You're going to pay for everything else to get there. Maybe you have a car, maybe you'll get a hotel in like not a huge market city. And that's it. And then like you go and you stay with your friends so you can save money, or you rent a car instead of doing Ubers so you're not paying hundreds of dollars on Ubers, and then you have to pay your management a commission or your agent a commission. And by the time that all comes down to it, like, that could well be over $1,000, $1,500. So like, that's the reality of it, where it makes it hard, because like, even though you're making a great fee and you get to this point, it still doesn't mean you're making like a profit.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that there has to be a part of you that has to enjoy trying to figure it out. I think that's what I secretly love about what I do. And it's just like, okay, we have a problem. How do we resolve it? How do we find a solution? You know, it's just like I'm never one to get like frustrated, angry, upset. Like if anyone like goes behind my back and tells someone that I'm an angry, mean person, just tell them to shut up because I'm anything but. I'm direct, but the thing is it's just like I never get mad. I just go, "Okay, what do we do now? What how are we going to figure this out?" And I think that scares some people, you know?
I think people get it's I think it's easy to get mad and frustrated, which I will
Right.
openly say I do often, because I feel like sometimes it's like you set everything up and you take care of things, but like, even if you take care of everything, there's still factors that are unaccounted for that can affect the outcome of certain things. And like having the power and the maturity and like the calmness, usually when I'm doing like yoga regularly, I'm a not lot more nicer of a person than when I'm not. Like with that, like I love the travel, like I love like fast life, like I love doing all of that stuff. But when it comes down to like at the end of the day, what we're doing is we are a business. Our project is a business, like just like we were selling a plushy product. It comes down to like a lot of hard conversations on like what you said, where you were just like, yeah, this year I decided to get my brand together, get my shit together, iron it out, make it a little bit more honed. Like all of that stuff matters. And it's hard sometimes to make certain decisions when you have so many other things going on.
Yeah, I think that's just kinda when you're like, "Okay, it's time to bring a manager in, it's time to bring an agent in,"
Mhm.
I think that's the part a lot of people tend to rush, you know? I mean,
I
like, I
agree.
was looking for a manager for a minute, I went through a couple different people. It's very important to me that people understand me. I'm a very misunderstood person, I'm fully aware of that, and that's okay, you know? Um, people I can't have somebody who's easily influenced by other people's opinions, especially being a woman, and that was really something that I was just like, "I'll just leave. This is gonna be a waste of my time."
I'm just gonna go. So why do you think you're like misunderstood? Like why do you think that people look at you as being like just a misunderstood individual and like making sure that you knew when you chose the right manager or the manager, inquired about you, that they made sure to understand like who you were? Do you mean in the facet of like you're not going to tell me what to do? Like I see my vision, I see it clearly. You're either going to be on the train or off the train, or like in what situation?
I just know I'm not typical. I'm very not typical, and I need somebody who's very communicative and explains things to me. There's, like, an aspect of me that I'm not going to say is, like, antisocial. I'm just probably more or less socially awkward. There's a
Mhm.
lot of social hints that I don't quite get. I'm not autistic or anything. I grew up as a competitive figure skater, and I didn't have a social life as an average elementary school kid. I didn't go to everyone's birthday party. I didn't, like, have a social life when I was 10 years old. My social life didn't begin until I was 15 years old. So there's a lot of, like, social things that I just don't quite get, and I
Mhm.
think that, like, throws people off and gives people the wrong idea about me. I'm just not typical.
And we're in an overly social scene. This is an overly social industry that is based so much on how much are you talking to someone, how much, I always will like I always have like the inner argument in my mind of, the age old like go out, network, like be there, support, like show you're aware, and also at the same time stay at home, hone your craft, make music, like do what you feel like is gonna move you forward the most. And like when your body is like, hey, you can go out and like see this person or do this thing, like that's the main reason. One of the main reasons I started the podcast was because I felt like after COVID, I had reached like a social burnout. I felt like I had transformed into a very homebody individual that liked being social, but also, like, I love, like, being alone. Like, I love my alone time. I'm very content being alone. Like, I've been in a relationship for 5 years, but I go to shows alone all the time. Like, I like having my own thoughts in my own head, and when you're out and about, like, every time I go to a festival, like, Kyle, like, my manager or, like, my boyfriend knows, like, unless I'm there to work, like, I will be there the day that I play, and, like, that's it. Like, I have no desire to be like, "I'm gonna be here all 5 days. I'm gonna be here to, like, be around people and talk and get to know people." Like, I rather just pick you up from the airport and us, like, go to an arcade or, like, get breakfast or, like, actually get to know each other than us, like, talking over alcohol when everybody's messed up in a green room. Like that is like a social kind of entity of me that's like very difficult. And then I can't even imagine. I did dance my whole life, so kind of, but also I was around other girls. Figure skating is a very independent sport. It is like, and if you're actually competing, like you're on a different level of like you're doing this 6 days a week and then you're going to competitions and then you're doing it 6 days a week and it is your whole life and has defined your whole life. But I also feel like that is very similar to traveling like as a producer on your own.
Yeah. I mean, to really give you perspective, when I was in 4th grade, I had an appendectomy,
Okay.
when you have your appendix
Okay.
removed.
Got it.
Um,
Ow.
so, yeah, I was out of school for like
Not
a week.
great.
Yeah, and, I remember getting like, my brothers brought home from school, like, cards that my classmates have made for me, and I actually didn't recognize some of the names. That is how far removed I was socially as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Big school, small school.
Small school.
Small school. Yeah, I went to a small school too. I know, I mean, I've forgotten about half of them since I've graduated, but the
Yeah,
people that yeah, that would definitely you were all in. That was like the definition of your life, and like, I'm sure the people who were around
right,
you were also other figure skaters, and they were on the same path as you, where it was like, "We're here to skate and, like, hone our craft and then do really well in the competitions."
and that's how I kinda was at school. Like, I had maybe, like, 2 friends that I can remember in elementary school, but it's like, they just were friends with me probably because they felt bad. And then in middle school, I was like that's when I was trying to start to socialize, but I was just so weird, and didn't quite understand signals from other kids, and they would kinda pick on me. And then in, like, high school, like, I finally was just, like, trying I had, like, a little group, but then I switched high schools 3 times.
Let's just, like,
So
throw that on top of the mix. That's difficult. I went to the same school, kindergarten through 12th grade. So I was with the same people the whole time. 1, middle school sucks. I feel like every traumatic story is, like, during your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th year and 8th grade, and I yeah, the most traumatic shit happened in middle school, and then I can't imagine I mean, I would see when someone would come into our school and it was such a small class size, and you're like, "Who is that? I don't know them." Maybe I'll get to know them, like, you're like the shiny new toy, and then you either, like, get accepted or you, like, don't, and it's one or the other.
I think that being the new kid several times really what makes me such a good performer because I really had to put on a face.
Makes sense. No, that totally makes sense because it's like no one knows you. So you switched high school. Did your family move or did you just switch high schools?
Yeah, so I moved from New Jersey to Maryland. I lived in Maryland for a year, and then I moved back to New Jersey. My dad had a government job,
Got it.
that moved us into Maryland, and then Maryland just was not a good fit for my entire family.
Mhm.
We just moved back to New Jersey, and I finished out my 2 years at a different high school.
Love it. That's great. And then off to Berkeley. So you've always been in like the Northeast area
Yeah.
until LA. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's like being very, very close to home and very, very close to family, and then saying, okay, now we're 3 hours apart, like time difference apart, and you are like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away. When you came out to LA, were you in the mindset of being ready, or were you in the mindset of, "I knew you were only supposed to be there for 2 months, like, I'm gonna try this out, I'm gonna see how I like it," and then I will say, like, about LA is, like, LA just has this energy. It has this energy that even Denver doesn't have, where there's this, like, grind. You feel it in New York too, but it's different. It's way different but, like, I think the grind aspect of it is similar, and I feel like every time I'm in LA, there's things that really inspire me to do better.
Yeah, I think I always wanted to leave home. When I was a figure skater, I was always traveling every summer for competitions, so it's not like I was ever really home anyway.
Got it.
Um, so I was always constantly on tour, I guess.
You've been trained since birth pretty much to be on tour, on the road. That's
Literally.
that's that's so true though. I would do the same
Uh-huh.
thing with dance where like everybody, especially being in a small school, like we didn't actually have good sports teams. Like people would play a fall sport and then they play a winter sport and then during the summer they would go to like theater camp or softball camp or swimming camp and I would like go to New York or I would like go to Chicago and go away. And I feel like that is a similarity that I found in speaking to like a lot of people that have become producers and like are DJs and are like doing their own project. There's definitely uh like a self fortitude of being able to be on your own so much but also be around so many people at the same time and be like okay, I'm cool, I'm collected, and like I can do this like all the time and every day.
Right, and I think there was something at Berkeley that I found that I also found in LA, was always being around creative people. There was just not that kind of community where I was from in New Jersey.
Mhm.
I did not see it in New York. I had a lot of distrust in New York. I can't really explain it. I just don't trust that city.
I
And
yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm not from New York, but I also, like, fucking love it. I'm also like, one day, could I live in a 363 square foot closet just to have somewhere when I'm there? Like, yeah, I could see myself doing that, but I also like, if somebody on the subway looks at me and tells me to do something, like, I'm fucking doing it. Like, I'm not gonna argue, like, that's it. There was, like
yeah.
yeah, yeah, like, New York just has this yeah, I was staying in Brooklyn and I went down to the subway to leave from Brooklyn and go into the city, and I got my suitcase stuck in, like, the roundabout, like a fucking idiot, like a white girl,
Oh,
like an
no.
idiot, yeah, and then I was looking at the woman, she was, like, behind the glass, she's like, "I don't know what to do," and then this big guy comes up, he helps me, and I'm right by, like, the exit door, like, with the gates where you have, like, the exit that's, like, the red kind of, like, "Don't push this, da da da," and this guy just runs up to it, like, throws himself on the door and is like, "Let me in," and I looked at the big guy and he's like, "Let him in," and I let him in, and then it was over, and I'm glad I let him in, but there's, like, some shit that I can't even imagine goes down in New York that is just wild, and I don't feel that way in LA. I will say I don't feel that way in LA, but I also don't, like, take the subway in LA, like, I don't even know if there's a subway, the bus, whatever.
Right. And, like, Atlanta, I think is just in its own world, and I just don't fit there. But, I also thought about Texas. I never really thought about Denver. I don't know why. Um, I thought about Texas for a bit because I had a friend out there, and I had a couple of friends that worked in studios, but it just never really worked out. But LA, like, something just always kept pulling me there. And growing up, I always loved, like, California culture. It's like I loved ska music, No Effects, Blink-182, you know?
Mhm.
Anything that came from California, it's like I loved it. And so I was just like, I should just like, people in college would always ask me if, I was from California, and I'd tell them, "No, I'm just from the beach and I'm a stoner."
You look
Like
like you're from California. In my opinion, I feel like you look like you're from California. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely when you're like, "Hey, I live in Venice Beach," I'm like, "Yeah, you, like, look like you live in Venice." Like, I feel like that's very fitting for the type of, like, individual you are, and, like, while you're still as I learned when I was with you, still technically in Los Angeles. You're not like downtown or like in like Melrose area or like Burbank area. Like you actually, I feel like can have peace in Venice for like a little bit, opposed to just like being on top of people.
That's funny that you say that because that's, like, the first thing people recognize about Venice is that it's peaceful, but personally, I think it's anything but.
Really? Why? Is it just there's
There's
so many
so
people?
much.
Yeah.
No, no, no. There's just so much that goes on here. Like, there's
Yeah.
so much to know about. I think what drew me to Venice is that I was so fascinated by it. There's so much art. There's so much history there. There's, like, you got the skate park, you got Dogtown, you have the house made out of, tiles and glass. It's like you have all these really like, there's spray paintings all over LA, but the most interesting ones are in Venice.
Mhm.
There's like the quirkiest homeless people here. Most of them are just hippies selling stuff on the boardwalk, and I love that. you know?
Yeah. No, I get that. And it's like you found like your place in a very big place where like I feel like everybody kind of some people I talk to like love downtown. Some people I talk to love North Hollywood and they love the neighborhood and they love the things around it. And I feel like I know quite a few people who work in music that live in Venice and they just love it.
Yeah, it's that artsy, quirky, or how do you say that?
Yeah,
Quirky?
quirky, right?
Quirky?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Um, it's that quiet, quirky, little artsy town, you know?
I like that. We live in the art district here in Rhino. It's called like the Rhino Art District in Denver, and it's like kind of like attached to downtown, but it's not really downtown. And
Right.
it's a nice area. The thing about Denver is like Denver's small, but like Colorado's really big. So I feel like you have like this duality where um you have it in like California where like if you wanted to go snowboarding or you wanted to go to the mountains, you could drive 4 hours and get there. We can drive like 1 hour and be just like in a totally different place, and that's what I really like about it. But I also like how close it is to LA. I feel like LA still intimidates me a bit where I really enjoy going for like 2 or 3 days and then I like have my fix and I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready to like go home." But that's also just probably because I haven't found like my area. Like I do like Studio City. I do like Burbank. I don't like being in like the middle of everything. But there's so many like as you know, like there's so many people there. Like do you feel like you being in LA and then kind of not transposing, like transforming into the electronic like community. Did you feel like there was ever a pressure to like go out and like be seen and like do that? Because I feel like that's what you hear about when you go to LA. Like you hear about like these mansion parties and you hear about like there's so many club shows and shows going on and you go and you can network and you can do this and do that. Like do you feel like that's actually a thing, or do you just feel like that's a thing that you can choose to partake in, but you don't have to in order, like, to know people in the city?
If you're not smart about it, yes. I think with me being an audio engineer, me being so far removed from the scene originally, it's like I kinda caught on to that so quickly.
Mhm.
And if there's anything like before I started Ghost in real life, I was in LA for 3 years already. So it's like
Okay.
I already kind of like knew my way around, understood, you know, w if people are going to a mansion party, they're just going to go do coke. That's
Mhm.
not networking, you
Mm-mm.
know? It's just like, I would find some people that I thought were really cool and down to earth and kind of go with them to shows because I knew I had to go to shows if I were going to have a career in this, if I were going to meet anybody in network. You have to do that, you know? It shouldn't feel like a pressure. It should be something that you want to do because you want it,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't enjoy going to shows, then don't put on one.
Yeah, so true. It's literally so true. And
Right.
and I feel like there are cool like there is like a lot of opportunities out there to like pick and choose to be in like a certain community versus like this is your only venue, this is your only like as you know, like there's just tons of cities where like you have one main venue and that is it. And that's not LA. And when you chose to like start the Ghost in Real Life project, were you just kind of like, I'm gonna hop into this and just like make music and like kind of see what sticks? Like, was there kind of like a plan behind it, or were you like, I'm just gonna like do this?
There really wasn't a plan behind it,
Okay.
unfortunately. I wish I did have more of a plan, but I did not.
I feel
I
like
was
that's
just
how so many people start though.
I really liked hybrid trap music. I loved it a lot.
Okay.
Um, I just hit a point where I felt like I was forcing myself to make it. Um, like, I was mixing in, like, some melody, like, melodic elements to it, and then I was throwing in this, and then I just kinda, like, hit a point one day, I'm like, "What am I doing?" Like
I feel that.
Yeah.
I totally feel that.
which I'm sure we all kinda hit at some point, like, it's just like, I feel like every artist kinda just you have to do trial and error if you're really gonna, like, find what is yours,
100%.
and, and it's like I really just wanted to make music, and I wanted to have electronic elements, and I wanted to have live elements, and I was just like, "We're going to figure this out. We're just gonna keep trying and figure it out." I think, like, when I first started Ghost in Real Life, I was walking around at, Space Yacht going, "Yeah, I make bass house," and I didn't make a single bass house song. Like, I think one night I was telling people I make Moombahton, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I'm just gonna make everything and we're just gonna, like, see what happens, like, that's just
Yeah.
gonna be it. Because I know, because it's like, you definitely have gone through a sonic change, obviously. I've gone through a sonic change, like, there's tons of projects that have gone through sonic changes, but yeah, I was just like, after the pandemic, what are you doing? Like, what do you actually want to make? What actually makes you happy? What actually takes from your past experience and culture and like likes and dislikes? And like, what are you going to kind of fuse together for it to be like you? Like, is it your voice? Is it this? Is it that? And everyone has to go through that. So, what posed like the ghost in real life? Like, how did you get that name? Like, is it because of like G.I.R.L, like that is how that came to life, and then you filled in the words with like what matches with G.I.R.L, or like what horse or what chicken before the egg before the chicken? What how did it come?
I don't think actually I've ever really told the whole story. I've always kinda give people, like, the short form that I googled acronyms for girl, and it was the first option, which is very true. But the full story is um, I was fired from the studio job. I was at my ex's house at the time I was dating him, and I was so upset and jobless, and I was just like, "I need to do something that is, like, feminist forward, but without being like, I'm a feminist, like, in
Mhm.
people's faces, just, like, something that's just, like, gonna give give 'em a hint, and so that's when I started searching. I think I searched acronyms for a couple of different things. um, I did, like, a couple of Google searches, I don't remember exactly, but I was just like, "What if I just, like" I was like, "What if I just did, like, girl?" And then I looked on Spotify, I was like, there's already so many different girl type artist names," and I was like, "Nah, it needs to be original." So then I Googled acronyms for girl, and it was like a code name in, like, COD, like the video game, for Ghost in Real Life.
Oh,
I forget,
wow,
like, what
okay.
the code was for, but it was also, like, an acronym. There was, like, because I remember looking it up because I was like, "Ghost in Real Life." I was like, that kinda hit, like everything that ended up working with me always hit, like, a chord in me. Like, it
Mhm.
hit me, like, drum and bass, when I first heard drum and bass, I was like, "Huh," like, you get that kinda, like, "Huh," moment. So, like, go when I read the Ghost in Real Life, I was like, "Huh." It's like, I've had so many ghost experiences in my life, like, I used to be super spiritual, and then it's like, there's also the girl element, and I was just like, "This could work." And, I made an Instagram and I made, like, a song that was, like, so out there. I think I have it hidden on my SoundCloud. I remember sharing it and just
I
being
wanna
like,
hear
"Yeah, this
it.
is what I'm gonna make." Like, and it's really good. It's really cool, but it's very experimental.
Mhm. I love it. Love it.
But yeah, that's kinda how that name came to be.
No, I love that because, like, I feel like not like the selling point, but, like, what I pay attention to is, like, the girl, but then you see, like, the ghost in real life. I don't know, it's just very fitting, like, it's definitely super unique, but it's one of those names that are in the back of my head, I'm like, I get it that it's like, "Okay, I'm a girl," but at the same time, it's, like, so much more than that, so it always intrigues me when I see projects, like, names like that, it's like, "Okay, how did you get
Right.
it? How did you figure it out?" Like, da da da. I'm like, "Yep, my first name's Elizabeth. I like to smoke weed, so we did Lizzie Jane, super easy, super, like, super boring and, like, really just out there, catchy name." And but when people have, like, a story like that, it's like, I just feel like the shirt that has the 4 GIRL, that's what I like love. I'm like, I can like see that like when I like hear the music, like all the aesthetics of it like come together really, really well. And it just fits like drum and bass. Like when was the first time that you heard drum and bass? Like, can you remember like a distinct moment where you were like, whoa, what is this? Like this is cool. Was it at like a
Trying to
show?
remember. Um, I used to hate on drum and bass. I'm just gonna straight up admit it. Um, there was a girl that I don't talk to anymore. She ended up not being a great person, but she loved drum and bass. She was from the UK.
Yeah.
And she's like her and a friend of mine ended up going to like a D&B&L with brownies and lemonade. I forget who was playing that night. It was like I think it was 2 years before I even started making drum
Like
bass.
one of their first ones, because 'cause they've only
Yeah,
been doing it for so long, the
yeah.
DNB&L. Yeah.
It was
That's
definitely,
sick.
like, one of their first or second ones, and I was just like, "Nah, I'm not gonna drum and bass is silly, they don't make any money on that." Like, I was such a hater. Oh, man. I think the first step is admitting it.
I say all the time, the first rave I was brought to was Borgor, and I was disgusted, and now, like, I have his number, like, we text here and there, like, I've played a shit ton of shows with him, like, he's a great fucking person, but I
Yeah.
remember standing there, 18-year-old Lizzie, naked girl like, in his, like, daddy stage, when he had, like, all of the girls on stage, every show that would be, like, naked, and I'm here I remember I was wearing, like, a shirt from Hot Topic, I had, like, jeans on and Vans in a club, and I was just like, "Ew." Like, what is this? And then I was brought to other shows and I fell in love. But the first part is admitting, and I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with that first say their first rave or their first time like coming on to the genre that they actually now love and make, they were like, ew, like this is not it.
I think when Reaper's album came out, that's when I really started to enjoy the genre, and then I finally got it. I was like, "I get this." Because it's like, I never really liked dubstep. I think that's why it kinda turned me off to making it. I didn't really enjoy dubstep shows. I liked trap. I liked experimental trap. There's, like, a part of my brain that's very complex, and I really like complex rhythms, and I
Okay.
like things that really make you think. Um,
Are we like Troy Boy trap or like Hoochie trap or like Stooky Sound trap? Like what type of trap like are you talking?
um,
I'm thinking
I
about like
think
OG trap.
Yeah, I mean, I love Troy Boy.
I
I
love
used to very much enjoy him. I also liked Cashmere Cat, you know,
Boo. Yeah,
and, he was like, that stuff was just so cool. It was, like,
Sophie, the real
Sophie.
experimental shit. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
that. Okay, okay. Like, where they would be using, like, field recorders and getting or just making, like, really, really, really weird sounds, and there almost, like, wasn't a rhythm to it. It was just, like, all over the place and super complex, and it was almost like IDM, like, kind of like intelligent dance music, but it also, like, banged in, like, an actual good club room system.
Yeah, no, I love that stuff, but I
Yeah,
could
okay.
not make it. I was not very good at making that kind of music.
Got it. I
So,
got it.
that's when I kinda leaned into dubstep. I was just like, "This I can make." But I don't really like it all that much.
Right there with you, sister. Coming from
You
someone who
know?
has a huge discography in bass music and I'll always have influences and I'll always respect the fuck out of it. I got to a point where I was like, there's a ceiling here for what I really want to do. And I'm almost to that ceiling, and if I can't, like, break through that ceiling, then, like, I have to do something that is, like, fulfilling to me. Like, I have to make something that can totally take dubstep sounds, can totally take, growls, sound design, structure, mixing techniques, all of that stuff, but, like, do something with it that is, like, you, not just you copying and emulating, like, who's popping off and, like, following trends and all of that shit. It was very difficult for me. It was a very difficult decision to make.
Right. And it's like a part of me wishes that, like, I knew of drum and bass sooner than Reaper, because
Mhm.
the more that I dove into it, the more I fell in love with it.
Love it.
And I think that's what really got me into, like, you know what? Like, maybe I'll try making this. And then I made the Alice in Wonderland, the Fuck You, Love You D&B remix, and I just
Mhm.
posted it to my story, and she shares it.
You're like,
Which was
"Okay."
like, I was freaking out. I was posting on Facebook on my personal page and being like, "I'm on Alice in Wonderland story." I like, I was freaking out.
Like, this is it. And it's funny because the subsidiary releases that I heard you do before you kinda hopped into drum and bass were really, in my opinion, music a lot more similar to her than, like, drum and bass, but you saw all of these artists that were like, "If you flip my song and make a drum and bass, or if you do this, or if you do that, like, it pops the fuck off." Like, I feel like there's very few things that I hear in, like, the sonic drum and bass lane, like, whether it's Liquid or Neuro or whatever, that doesn't, like, go off and you're like, "Wow, this is, like, really sick."
Right. I don't know, I really idolize Alice in Wonderland. Um, I have a lot of respect for her in a lot of different ways. I can go on and on about that, but I'm not going to. But,
She's an OG. She was one of the first ones that I think, like, all of us saw that through her getting, more established and, like, just, like, really, like, staying on top and being able to be a mom and being able to be married and being able to, like, remove herself, make an album, come back. Like, you think about, like, all of the different, like, ups and downs and highs and lows throughout her career, and she's really, like, stayed so true to, like, her vision and has set such a lovely example for other women, female, non-binary artists to really be in the space and, like, flourish. And she showed, like, nothing but support to so many people in, like, our generation coming up, which, like, again, is just crazy when, your inspiration, your idol is actually, like, fucking dope and, like, supports you. Like, in my lane, it's like Elohim has been, like, commenting on my stuff and, like, I freak the fuck out. I'm like, "That's Elohim." Like,
yeah.
"Okay, like, love you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it."
Right.
It's always a cool feeling.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, like, once she shared the first drum and bass thing I ever made, you know? Like, this is, like, the first thing.
You're like, "This is it." You're like, "Okay, this is way better than whatever I was doing."
I was like, "I should try to make an original song." Um, so I was, like, messing around with a few ideas, and then I hit up my friend in Philadelphia, Shep, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I really wanna write something angry, and I'm just not good at, like, writing angry lyrics. Like, I was always good at, like, emotional, sad stuff, and I just didn't want to be, because there's, like, a fire, like, inside of me that I just, like, could not express fully." And, Shep sent me, like, a voice note of, I sent him, a bridge to, like, it was like a intro to a build up, and he just, like, sang over it, and, like, I ended up taking some of those melodies and a few lines and rearranging some of the words and writing a whole second verse, and that's when I wrote Youth.
Youth was the first record, like, I heard from you that I was just like, "Damn, dude." I was like, "That's so sick," because you haven't, and I'm sure somewhere overseas, is there someone maybe making some of that, like, shouty, angsty music match with Demi? I'm fucking sure, but I haven't heard it, and when you sent it to me, I was like, "This is, like, everything." I had already been a fan of Slippy, so I had already, like, really, like, I play his tracks out in my sets all the time. He's a very multi-genre versatile producer that
Yeah,
just smashes and is like a producer's
the
producer,
talented.
is so
Right.
freaking talented. And I saw that and then I was like, okay, like I'm really intrigued to hear this. And I remember playing it and I played it in here and I was like, I don't remember what I messaged you, but I think I messaged you back right away. Or I saw it on your story and I was like, I need this right now. I was like, I need this right now. And then when I listened to the whole thing, it's just like an anthem. It's like it's I listened, I was like, "This is everything about my childhood, like rock, kind of like punk pop, post-hardcore lane, matched with just a massive drum and bass, like banger."
Right.
And again, there's so many subgenres in drum and bass, which allows people to be super self-expressive, just like dubstep and bass music. There's so many subgenres, but that like hit that, like, chord and you're like, "Damn, this is, like, really, really, really sick." And I feel like
Yeah,
it
no
definitely
problem with it.
was when I saw, like, you as, like, a D and B like, artist and producer that could also do other shit, but like is going into this like sonic chapter, I was like, yep, that's it. This is it. I'm like, this is it. This is very cool. It's cool when you see somebody like find yourself because a lot of people just make music they don't like for a long time. And then a lot of people like, they have just such a journey before like that light bulb goes off and you're like, this is it. Like this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right, and it's just like, I forget who said this today, I read it somewhere, but they're like, oh, blank said this. He's like, collaboration in EDM is so important. And he was talking about audio. And it's just like with youth coming to fruition, it really was a collaborative effort. But it was just like my friends kind of helping me find myself in a way, you know? So
Yeah.
it's just like I felt like when that song came out, some people in my friend group, um, were really not nice to me. They were trying to make claims that I didn't write it or that like I was trying to steal credit from other people. Everybody who did something on that song got credited. You can go through the credits. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and it's like that whole thing with like ghost producing and people hating on it. It's just like people just don't understand that sometimes finding yourself, you need help from your friends, you know?
I mean, it's a collaborative like EDM, I've talked about this so many times. One, I tweet it once a year when someone's like, "Oh my god, I clicked the song credits and there were 23 producers on Nightmare's new single. Oh my god, what's going on?" Like that's how all of these large guys are facilitated. Like there's singer-songwriter session. There's multiple women in a room writing a song for one vocalist to sing. There's multiple producers writing in a room to send ideas to these guys who are touring 365. Tiesto is not making his own fucking music. Hate to tell you, but he does have a say in it and he is knowledgeable and he does have experience. But like being in a band, you're in a collaborative art form. You working in the
Right.
pop world, you look at the new Doja Cat album, go click on the song credits there. There's 60 motherfuckers on each song. Like this is like it's literally like such a thing and it's so accepted across the board until you reach the facet of you being a producer who is the DJ who is supposed to make all the music. And I think like now more than ever there's DJs who are performers and they have other aspects, whether it's a live element or they're a vocalist as well. And like they have their own producer or they have a co-producer. Like, I don't know. It's just a really hard topic. And I feel like as you grow and get larger as a producer, it's more okay because like every large producer has co-writers and co-producers and engineers. But when you're like small, you're apparently supposed to do it all on your own. And, like, people just don't sometimes get that and see that, and also, it's like, if you have the right, like, cooks in the kitchen, like, more brains and more, like, creative assets are gonna make something that's better than just one person. I think there's a reason why there's so many EDM records that come out every week, but there's so few of them that actually, like, stand the test of time. Well, there's, like, music and so many other genres that I feel like last more than just 1 week on, like, release radar. Like, it's because there's more people working on the actual record. Like, I don't know. I have very strong thoughts about.
I think when it comes down to there's always more to the story than people want to admit.
Mhm.
I've worked in like when working in the recording studios, you kind of see what kind of happens and like why people are being credited a certain way. Like a lot of the times labels will have what's called writing camps, which are very lucrative for writers, producers, songwriters, engineers. Um, and what people do is they all sit in a room and they just make music together and it's a really nice time. You get snacks for free, like
Great.
and right. And it's just like what happens is so like whatever songs come from those, they get pitched out to other artists. It's just like so it's just like it's very similar to my to how youth was made, right? I had an idea that I started on paper. I had a drawing and I went to Shep and I said, "I don't have the right color green. Do you have it?" And he goes, "Okay, yeah, here you go." So I took that color green and I added it to my painting. And then I went to Slippy and I said, I can't get this color blue right, but I know you're really good at making this color blue. Can you help me out here?" And he put in that color blue, right? So it's like initially it's my sound, it's like my idea, it's my painting, but I needed a little help from my friends. And whereas like with a writing camp, it's like when you're pitched a song from a writing camp, they don't sound very good. I will
They
give
don't.
you these are drunk ideas from a group of people that probably were drinking until 4 AM. It's like but there's always just something that will hit you right, and then the artist will go, "Okay, I wanna take that, but I wanna change this, and I wanna add this because this is part of my brand. This is like, okay, I need to change these words because me as an artist, I would never say that." It's like that's just kind of like what the process sometimes looks, and it's just like I hate that it's so gate kept from a lot of people, and I think that's what a lot of the stir up is on social media is that people are just kind of afraid of the unknown and that it's like they're being duped, but I
Mhm.
promise you that is not the case.
It's not the
Like
case, and, like, I think that whole situation is so much different than saying, "Hey, you're sending me a folder of tracks that it's one-on-one and I'm just going, "Yeah, this track's $500. I'm gonna pay you for it. You're gonna sign an NDA," which doesn't even happen on, like, lower ends, and I'm gonna say that Lizzie Jane made it because that is so different than what we're talking about now. Like, that is a completely different thing, and I think as long as all of the collaborators are credited properly, and if you wanna just get your bag, go get your fucking bag. Like, I understand. I don't know, like, do I agree with people who really don't know their way around a DAW being like, "Yeah, I made this," like, no, but I also understand that, like, in the world of DJing, it is a performative art form, and, like, DJing in itself is different too, like, you have people that are born to be performers, just like pop stars, that don't have it in their skill set or don't have the time or don't have the whatever to do the other end of it, but as long as they're, like, paying someone, like, then it's up to you as a fan to decide, like, whether you wanna support them or not. Like, it is a muddy subject, but I think 9 out of 10 situations that I see, it's where they have a co-writer, and they're crediting them, and they're getting paid, and they're getting their points, and or it's coming from a writer's camp, and they're still crediting them, and then they're taking it and they're adapting it to their own, like, that's just making art. Like, that's not ghost production, in my personal opinion. It's just not.
right, yeah, no, I hate that it's even called ghost producing or ghost writing. It's just like,
Ghosts in real
I
life.
feel
I could see that being a thing. Yeah, yeah, I get that. I totally get the reasoning behind that because it's so easy to do it the right way. It's so easy to do it the right way. And I also like learning production, like, isn't easy. It takes you a long time. Like, I always tell, like, my students, like, the sooner you start, the sooner you stop sucking. Like, you just have to start and you're gonna suck. Like, you're going to sound so bad. Like, I listened to my first releases, and as much as I wanna take them off Spotify, I'm like, "No," because it, like, shows the journey, and, like, if people wanna dig back that far, like, they can hear, like, where you started to where you come from, and I think a lot of people, like, even like yourself where like you just started and you just like were like, I'm gonna make whatever and throw whatever at the wall and like see what hits. Like I did the same thing, but like unfortunately, when you're not starting out the bat with like a huge team and a huge plan and a huge brand, like that's what happens. Like it's part of the growth process. Like you're finding yourself as an artist and like you're honing your craft. Because I think the saddest thing is when someone just holds on for songs for so long because they're afraid of what other people will think or it's not good enough. Like all art is bias and like you're never gonna have the whole world like your song. Like you're always gonna have people who don't like it and you're gonna always have people that like fuck with it and love it. And you never know which one is gonna leave like a lasting impact on somebody.
yeah, totally. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. It's so when you I know like you started like Ghost from Real Life before the pandemic for sure. Yes.
It
Yes.
was, like,
It was like
a few
right
months
before.
before.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was probably in, like, May 2019.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then world shut down, and then the world opens back up, and then shortly after, you're on the Hyperdie tour with Riot Ten, right?
So, I did a little bit of touring
Okay,
before, um, like, I did, Lost Lands 22,
okay,
and then I did, like, a few shows I think I did a few shows with Bilo. I opened for Excision before my first Lost Lands at the pre-party. He did I also opened for Riot 10 before that.
okay,
A and I also opened for Yeah Me Too. And these were, like, at Academy, Exchange.
got it.
Um, Yeah Me Too was, like, my first introduction to Insomniac. And then that was my way in to be like, "Hey, can I be on this show? Hey, can I be on this show?" But
Yeah,
I was very selective. Like, I was never that person that wants to be on every single show. Um,
it's
I
not the
would
way to
pick
go.
and choose, like, okay, this person does a tour. Let's try to do a show with them and show them what I can do and what I can bring to the table. And then maybe they'd want to add me to their tour. And that worked with Riot 10. He loved me, and him and his agent loved me so much. They're like, I need her on my tour. And he almost added me to his 22 tour, but I was just too late. He had already promised like a bunch of people.
Mhm,
Um, then he added me to his 23 tour.
Play-Doh. And that was, you were definitely like a like elephant on that lineup because it's like you have heavy dubstep, heavy dubstep, heavy dubstep, and then you're doing like melodic and drum and bass stuff, which again fits in that like sonic range, but it is quite different. It is so different.
Yeah. One thing I have to say about Chris was like, I mean, his 23, his last tour actually had I have to say, a pretty diverse group of people because
Okay,
there was me
that's
and
good.
Skeleton. Me and her are both drum and bass, and then John Casey's like Troy Boy trap, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And he had a like he had Resurrect. Um, I forget who else he might have had. Um, but he would always pair the right people together. Like me and John Casey, it was a very well put together show because I had like my drum and bass, and then there was John Casey. So it's like it almost was just like I'm high energy, and then there was like that consistent energy of John Casey, and then you can bring in Chris with full force.
I think that's how it should be. Like the diversity on the lineups. Like I just remember just getting into electronic dance music and you're listening to 5 hours of the same thing over and over and over again. And now I feel like there's more diversity than ever. That's awesome. Cause I did not realize that. And but I also love Chris. Like Riot 10 is a phenomenal human being. Probably one of the nicest I've met in the industry. Like he's a genuine guy. Like he is a genuine person, like through and through, has given me a bunch of opportunities, like has given a lot of friends of mine, including yourself, like a lot of their like first actual major tours. Like he's no G. Like he's awesome. And I think he came from a place that we've come from. So he knows. Like he knows. He's like, if I have an opportunity to give someone their first tour and their first, exposure to XYZ market, like I'm gonna do it. And I think that's like amazing because it doesn't always work that way. It just doesn't. And
And
and he does it.
yeah, he's so humble about it too. I don't think he realizes how many females like careers that he's launched. Like
Yep.
I remember like Lay's first tour was with him. It's like
Yep. Yeah.
he basically launched her career and like I mean she had a pretty good repertoire prior, but like I think it was really that tour that like really brought her to people. And the same for me as well. It's just like I don't think he gives himself a lot of credit sometimes. And I'm just like, Chris, like you're so awesome. Like, come on.
He's such a humble guy. And yeah, like when I remember doing the podcast with him, like I had done stops on his Hyper Die tour, I think in 2021. And that was like the year before Layla was on it. And then you were on it the following year. And like I feel like it's just it's yeah, he always makes sure that like females are represented, but you also don't feel like the token female. I've been on tours where I feel like I'm the token female. I'm like the odd girl out. Like, this doesn't fit. Like, this doesn't sonically fit. Like, yes, it's my fault I said yes, but like, it really wasn't because of what my project is. It was just to say that we have female representation. Where like his team and like the way that all of that was planned, like, is just very genuine. Like, you can tell when someone's being genuine and when somebody's just not. And yeah, he's lovely. And then like after that, I feel like, oh my gosh, like you really like, there's been obviously like so much shit, but like you had youth, you had D&B and L events, you've done a lot of stuff with Bass Rush, like you've been doing a lot. And I feel like there's like more stuff to come, and like I'm very excited to see everything like continuing to blossom. And I know you've had like obviously label releases, but you just had You Can't Tell Me What to Do come out, which is super exciting. And
Yeah.
was that like, that was also, that's also like an angsty, like, fuck you, you can't tell me what to do. Like, I'm gonna scream, like, I'm gonna throw things. Dude, when I saw the video of you smashing the plates, which is like super fun, or the glass or whatever you chose to smash, I literally thought about shards going into your leg. And then I read the caption and I was like, I would be dying. I would be dying. Like, you don't think about it and then it happens. And then you're like, I have glass all over every piece of me. So tell me about like the creation of that song, like the visual aspects, and like how that came to be.
Um, so I guess, like, ever since youth, I've just been on this ride of I get to be angry and I get to have fun and I get to not care. It's like you mentioned, like, being the token female. I'm just like, if I have to be the token female, I'm gonna fucking own it and I'm gonna be better than everyone on the lineup. Thank you. It's like it just gave me permission to have that attitude. So
Yeah.
it's just like after youth, it's like I wrote all these like types of songs, like, I wanted to follow the same vocal production, it's just like I found something that works, right? So I'm gonna sing my vocals these certain ways. I'm gonna make my music with this kind of energy. And like, I wrote Alive, I wrote Taking Over, I wrote Feel Better, you know? Feel Better is actually about all the people that were not so nice about me getting some help with writing youth. It's like, I hope you feel better. You know?
So
It's
good.
like you're right, and then, You Can't Tell Me What to Do, it's like, kind of like, um, I was getting frustrated because I'm not a strong sound designer at all. I will be the first to admit that. I'm a very good mixer, I'm a very good sample finder, and then rearranging the sample to make it
Mm.
sound like it you don't even
Like
recognize it.
resampling, processing,
Yeah,
what all of that fun
processing.
stuff. I was always horrible at dubstep sound design. You put me in like Pro Tools and Foley, kill it. Kill it every time. Dubstep sound design literally was when I was just like, fuck this, like I'm done. Like this, like yeah, 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 I feel
Yeah.
you.
But the only song I have to say with dubstep I thoroughly sound designed and didn't use many samples in was Metamorphosis.
Okay,
And I love that song. I still play it out. That's like the only dubstep song I'm actually proud of that I made.
love
But
it.
like You Can't Tell Me What to Do. I spent hours YouTubing, looking up serum tutorials, like, trying to really learn, like, sound design, because that was, like, the main reason why I hit up Slippy was just because I just the demo that I made for Youth, the sound design just was not there. Like,
Mhm.
if I put out Youth with the way it sound previously, it would not be as popular.
Yeah,
So it's like I really give Slippy a lot of credit there. Um but a lot of, like, that song form and the writing, it's me, you know?
yeah,
So it's like, okay, I know how to write a good song, I know that, but I need it to sound really good. So it's like I really forced myself to sound design, and it's just like when I finally got it and I had this really cool sound, I was like, "Okay, we need a vocal." I was like, "You can't tell me what to do. Yeah, I can do it."
you're like,
Like
yes, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. That's hilarious. I mean, sometimes it just takes like that last like push to try and get a song to a certain level. Yeah, sound design has
Mhm.
always been not like my like fault or whatever, but it just showed me like, hey, if you really don't enjoy doing this, and then when you push through and you do the 4-hour session when you're making all these samples in, A minor or F minor, and you're just gonna use them and make the flow later. Like, if that workflow doesn't work for you, like, go back to sample manipulation, go back to recording your instruments and doing what you want with them to get like noises. Like that's yeah, but it's I love the record, and it's like a very fun record, and it's a very like catchy like phrase line, like I can sing along to it, I can know the lyrics like that. It's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like I think a part of me what was so frustrating about making that song is knowing that there are a group of dudes out there that are all sitting on a Discord sharing ideas and sounds with each other, and it's just so hard for me as, like, a woman to find that,
Yeah,
because it's just like, as much as I would love to sit on a Discord with a bunch of women and sound design and share
doesn't
samples
happen.
that it's just like we're just so behind and we just don't have the same resources as dudes just have.
Eh,
And I just
yeah,
it's just like I think that's, like, a lot of, like, where the frustration in that song also comes from. So I think that's why I really wanted to release it during, like, Women's History Month and have me in a mini skirt breaking glass with a baseball bat. Like, I remember texting my photographer, be like, "Hey, you wanna do a shoot where I'm breaking shit with a bat?" And she's like, "Hell yeah." I'm
she's like,
like,
yeah,
"Alright."
I'm in, like I'm ready, like get me lined up, like let's go. No, I love it. I mean, I'll always remember like the video game culture. My child is barking. I'll always remember the video game culture where it's like, "Oh, like, I played COD with him for 4 years, and then he asked me to go on tour." Or, like, I played Halo, and we were on the same team, and then we started a collab later that night. Like, that was never gonna happen for me. Like, that was it just wasn't. Like, it just wasn't like I'm not a gamer, like, love video game music. I'm not a gamer, like, I don't have, like, the time in my day to do that at night. Like, at night, like, I wanna be making music instead of, like, being on Discord and gaming, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I also knew, like, as a woman, like, you are never gonna be in that same circle. Like, it's just not the deck of cards that we are handed,
Right.
but it is nice that, like, we have such, like, a support group now that I feel like that we didn't have before. Girl Gang,
Mm.
Femme House. There's so many different communities that are really, really focused on women and women empowerment, and it's like it's lovely. Okay, so we've been talking forever. So what are you excited for coming up with the Ghost in Real Life project, or like shows, music, like anything you can tease for listeners?
I am putting out a song, next month,
Okay.
on the weekend of a very important festival. I can't say I'm playing it, but I'm playing it and I'm very excited, but it's next month. Um
I may have a little inkling. I can't say I'm playing it either, but I'm really excited. That's so exciting. So we're gonna release a song next month, same
It's the
weekend.
song
Cool.
where I make everyone move their hands like this.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I've seen the videos. I think I've seen the videos
yeah,
on social media.
so I'm
Yeah,
gonna put out that one. I'm just kinda doing self-releases right now. I do have a label release this summer,
cool.
which is gonna be really cool, and then, we're I mean, like, it's funny because it's like, I hate to say this, it's probably gonna upset a lot of people, but it's just like, I'm really just kinda starting the Ghost in Real Life project, like, it's like I only started making drum and bass, like, 2 years ago.
But
I
like
have, like, so much work to do.
takes a while though to like get it figured out. Like I literally feel like I mean, you want to say that you're just starting, like I feel like the EP that I'm releasing on May 3rd is like the first actual thing that like defines like the Lizzie Jane project. And I've been releasing music since 2018. So like don't feel like you're behind or whatever. Like it takes a while. Like it just does. And
Right.
you'll lose some fans, but you'll gain a lot more than you'll lose. I think that
Right.
that's the way that I like to look at it. Like when you're really passionate about something, like people can see it. I think fans can see it, communities can see it.
Right. I think also too, I was just not prepared to be this successful this quickly. With drum and bass especially. So I'm like, "Shit, shit, shit."
Yeah,
I got
you're like, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. I get that. But you just have to take like a deep breath and like I feel like it's always like it's hard being in an industry where quantity seems like such an important thing. Like the more
Right.
shows, the more likes, the more releases. But it's not always that way. Like it just isn't. Like you have to find what's right for you and like what's going to allow yourself to create longevity and like create a sustaining like workflow and career, balance with what you can continue to do to keep the momentum pushing forward. I think all of us are always like worried about like what's next. Like you finish something super big and then you're like, "Oh, what's next?" Like, "Oh, I have to get here. I have to get this done." But in that, you're like, "Okay, I've been making drum and bass for 2 years and look how far I've gone." Like you have to be able to look back and like look at the other side of things. Like you and I both have something very exciting coming up. And with that, we have to be like, "Fuck yeah, like this is awesome." Like we did it and there's a lot of people who would die to be doing what we're doing. And like that's super important at the end of the day as well.
Right, and I totally recognize that, and I'm very, very grateful to be where I am, and it's like, I also know that I worked very, very hard to get here, so it's like, I'm also very proud of myself, you
Absolutely.
know?
You can't do without working hard. Usually if you see someone pop up super quick and there's little to no background and there's little to no whatever, they fall as fast as they climb. And it doesn't happen when you put in the time and the years and you have like an actual like community around you, like fans around you that support you and like are like in love with what you're doing. There's like no way to go backwards. But it takes a long time to establish. It's like, are you gonna build the like or build the house of straw, or are you gonna build the house of bricks? And like if you choose and you choose to go the path less traveled, it's a harder one, but it's definitely more fulfilling. And when those like opportunities and those like bookings come, you're like, fuck yeah, like I deserve this. Like I have no imposter syndrome. I have nothing. Like I know I'm supposed to be here. That's how you have to approach it. That's my motto for 2024. It's like you do it, go get it, and that's it. But thanks for talking today. This was a lovely podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad we got to meet in New York before we did this because I feel like we actually like know each other and we'll definitely do more in the future. Yes.
Cool, yeah,
Love
thank
it.
you so much for having me.
Absolutely. For people who want to check you out, what's your handles? Um, website, like whatever you want to push, and then we'll end the episode.
My Instagram is Ghost in Real Life Music, and then my Twitter is Ghost IRL Music because it was too long for Twitter. So, but anywhere it's Ghost in Real Life.
Love it. That's amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Maggie. I greatly appreciate you being here. I'm gonna stop recording.